I was with a music publishing company in the 60s, kind of trying to be a songwriter, not even a singer particularly, but I was quite happy to write them songs, and they would give these songs to different artists. That was the idea anyway. Nothing ever came of it. I think they got like 3 placed. And one of the things they gave me was this French song, and they said, do an English lyric to this. So I wrote this god-awful lyric. Even a fool learns to love, it was called. It was dreadful. God, it's so awful. Really embarrassingly bad. And I sang the lyric to the actual record that they sent me from France. So you hear the actual. There's a tape of me. You can hear. I've seen it on the internet. I mean, it's available. You hear the French song in the background. You hear me singing my lyric over the top of it. It's very funny.
They're funny man. Don't let them down. Oh, why dance and prance and be their clown? That time, a happy time, that even a fool learns to love.
Yes, there were times, I'm sure you knew.
The next time I heard it, it was My Way by Frank Sinatra. What happened to my lyric? Oh, I'm sorry, but it wasn't very good, so we got Paul Anka to do it. So I was really pissed off. I thought, oh, it should have been my song, you know? So I thought, okay, I'll write my own version. So it's My Way on Mars. Those sessions seemed to me to be awfully... I know there were musicians on the album that I hadn't really worked with before, so I felt a little bit insecure about whether it was going to come out sounding the way I wanted it to. That's the only thing I remember. But it turned out okay, didn't it? Was it Wakeman on piano?
And then he phoned me up and said he wanted me to come round to his house. He wanted to play me some songs. And he had a beautiful house in a place called Beckenham, which is in Kent. And I was only just like a young 21-year-old session musician. I'd joined Straubs, and I was enjoying myself, but I lived in a tiny little house, so I arrived at this huge, great house. I remember going, like, looking at this place and walking in there, and it had an enormous hallway, and there was all the band's equipment and things were set up for a band. And David met me, and his little boy, Zoe, had just been born, and we went upstairs and had a wonderful grand piano. I can't remember the make, but I remember it was light brown, a very old grand piano. And we sat down in this room. He said, I want to play you some songs. And I said, okay. So he said, I want to do this new album. And what's important with this album? He said, I've always come down from a guitar point of view. He said, I'd like to come to this album from a piano point of view. He said, so I want to play the songs on the guitar, and I want you to write how you would play them on a piano, and then I want to adapt around that. So, oh, okay. Oh, yeah. So he then got out this battered old 12-string guitar, and he started playing these songs. He played changes, and all these songs kept coming out one after the other that were just phenomenal. And then normally when you do an album, you get 1 or 2 good songs that you work on, and they were just getting better and better. And then he played Life on Mars, which was just probably the best song I'd ever heard. We basically played the track live. And David sung live too. He came down. He redid the vocals later, but he sung so that it was actually recorded as if it was a band. It's always very easy to be retrospective and say, oh, it was fantastic sessions and it went really well. But the truth is, there were fantastic sessions. I do feel very proud of the Hunky Dory album because David allowed everybody to have more than just a part of being a session musician. Here's the song, play along. He allowed me freedom in how I wrote the piano part that went with it. And I always felt very honoured that you've got a great songwriter and a great recording artist like David who will trust somebody to produce their own part to go with one of his songs.
It's
a god-awful small affair to the girl with the mousy hair, but her mummy is yelling no, and her daddy has told her to go, but her friend is nowhere to be seen. Now she walks through her sunken dream to the seat with the clearest view, and she's hooked to the silver screen. But the film is a sad thing for she's lived it 10 times or more. She could spit in the eyes of fools if they ask her to focus on sailors fighting in the dance hall. Oh man, look at those cavemen go. It's the freakiest show. Take a look at the low man beating up the wrong guy. Oh man, wonder if you'll ever know who's in the best-selling show. Is their life on Mars? It's a god-awful small affair to the girl with the mousy hair, but her mummy is yelling no, and her daddy has told her to go, but her friend is nowhere to be seen. Now she walks through her sunken dream to the seat with the clearest view, and she's hooked to the silver screen. But the film is a saddening bore, for she's lived it 10 times or more. She could spit in the eyes of fools if they ask her to focus on sailors fighting in the dance hall. Oh man, look at those cavemen go. It's the freakiest show. Take a look at the low man beating up the wrong guy. Oh man, wonder if you'll ever know who's in the best-selling show. Is their life on Mars? Life on Mars. It's on America's tortured brow.
Working with David back then was always very easy. It's one of the best vocalists I've ever worked with. Like almost every vocal he did was just one take all the way through. There was no having to patch it up or anything like that, or do lots of takes to decide which was the one. It was, he'd go out, he'd sing it, it was there. It was a great period. We were doing so much, and no one quite knew what to expect of it. This was, David had had a moderate amount of success some time before with Space Oddity. Then there'd been nothing for ages, and it was a completely new situation. He was using musicians he hadn't used before. I'd worked with him on 2 albums before, but as an engineer, this was the first time we did the co-production. And so we were all feeling each other out. I suppose there was a certain amount of disappointment because this didn't do very well at all when it first came out. And yeah, it was just okay. We did what we wanted to do, it was great, so other people don't get it, that's fine. And then Ziggy came out and I was completely blown away. I was just sitting in reception at Trident and Gus Dudgeon came up and said, "Congratulations." I said, "What on?" And he said, "Oh, Ziggy entered at number 7 this week." And bloody hell, absolutely blown away. So it then took that, and then they did another push on this again after Ziggy, and then it happened. There are so many things that probably all just came together and made it what it was. David had to write it and had to perform it correctly. Rick Wakeman had to play the piano correctly. Ronno had to do everything. Woody, Trevor. I had to do everything correctly. These things either happen or they don't. And this one sure as hell did. And of course the surprise is always, which a lot of people miss this part. It carries on at the end. There's a phone ringing.
Well, I think that really that my subject matter hasn't really changed over the years. That I'm still in a way writing Life on Mars all these years later, you know, it hasn't. And The Man Who Sold the World. I mean, the way that I present songs has changed a lot, and the style for each album has changed considerably. I'll often try new rhythms and new kinds of arrangements. It's like I want to keep writing about the same subject, but my approach, it's like I'm trying to get into it, like finding a different door each time I approach that same subject.
And it's about alienation then?
A lot of it is, yeah, one's interior kind of isolation as well, you know. It doesn't just mean one's social isolation, it can mean, you know, how you get in contact with your own feelings, you know, as well. It can be quite personal in that way.